Welcome everyone to Wrasslin Raw!
All right, you're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when Monday Night Raw was uncut, uncooked, and uncensored. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
Thank you, and I would just like to make clear there is no relation to Barney here.
Are you wearing purple?
I have no purple on right now, but I am quite large.
Joe Gimateo.
All right, listen up, you peons, because this is going to be one of the shortest Wrasslin Raw podcasts ever.
I'm Jason Bartlett. That's no relation to Rob Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history one episode of Raw at a time. And before we get to that, though, we here at Wrasslin Raw just want to send a very special thank you to that person out in Oregon that has downloaded all of our episodes, I guess, has subscribed to us. That puts us up to a whopping 1 subscriber that we know of. Whoever this person is out in Oregon, they've been consistently sticking with us through this just hail of great content we're throwing at you. And not just that person in Oregon, but from all of us, thank you to everyone who has downloaded our episodes. We are pretty sure we have more than 1 subscriber. But personally, I don't know about you guys, but I was pretty impressed with those downloads from India and England.
And Turkey. Don't forget Turkey.
Yes, we are spreading throughout the world.
We're taking over.
It's a pandemic of wrestling. That being said, in this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on October 10th, 1994. This Raw was recorded at the Memorial Auditorium in Utica, New York, and features Vince McMahon and the Macho Man, Randy Savage, on commentary. Are you guys ready?
Ready.
Oh, yeah.
So in this episode of Raw, we start out with Vince yelling at us again, but this time we are going to go straight into our first match of the night. Lex Luger defeating Bam Bam Bigelow by pinfall in 8 minutes and 35 seconds. So we've got green dollar signs lighting up the entranceway as Bam Bam Bigelow comes down the ramp, accompanied by Tatanka, Nikolai Volkov, and the $1 Million Man. Vince roars that we have no idea what's going to happen in this edition of Monday Night Raw, and reminds us that it's the special holiday edition. This is the Columbus Day edition of Monday Night Raw.
Did you say this was Columbus Day?
Yeah, they did state that quite a few times.
I had no idea.
Amazing.
Well, Savage says, just like Christopher Columbus said, it's going to be 1 if by land and 2 if by sea, which is not accurate at all. Lex Luger starts to come down the entranceway, and there is a fairly decent crowd pop for him. At least it seems like there is. I wouldn't be surprised if they're adding crowd noise for him here after the fact, superimposing it. We are reminded again about the single greatest heel turn in the history of professional wrestling, and Vince tells us that no one will doubt the word of Lex Luger ever again, especially later on when he's questioned about his role in the death of Miss Elizabeth. Vince uses the Rocket's red glare line as white pyro goes off for Luger. And as the match gets started, Savage calls Luger the master of the Rebel Rack, which we all know is really called the Torture Rack. There's a whip into a shoulder block that puts Luger to the mat. Bam Bam is roaring and throwing his arms out, and this is the kind of display of power that has always made me a fan of Bam Bam. He really looks unbeatable here, and he continues to really perform throughout this entire match. I wish I could say the same for Lex Luger. So right here is where I noticed and noted, and this gets back to a conversation that we had last week. I think to signify Tatanka's heel turn, his hair has been dyed either dark brown or black. So Ryan, last week or the week before, you were talking about Tatanka, how he's still coming out in his normal ring attire with no color changes, which is still correct here. He has his normal wrestling gear on. But I'm pretty sure, I'm like 99% sure, his hair color has been changed because he used to have like a partially dyed neon maroon mullet. And now it's a dark dye job ponytail.
I was going to say that the biggest thing I noticed that it was a ponytail now and not a mullet.
Yeah. Yeah, so much like Crush showing up with a black goatee, I guess the transition from maroon mullet to black ponytail is the mirror universe indicator that we have evil Tatanka here.
The ponytail signifies that he owns a casino in Native American culture.
Oh, man. That's actually, that really kind of makes sense. So it's really painful watching Bam Bam sell for Luger throughout this match. At one point, it's not believable at all that a single punch from Luger would toss Bam Bam out of the ring like it does. I'm not complaining about Bam Bam in that. Bam Bam does his job, goddammit. He sells his ass off for Luger, but it is just really hard to believe that Luger could be effective against Bam Bam at all. Vince says that both IRS and King Kong Bundy are conspicuous in their absence at ringside, and then makes some jokes about IRS having tax paperwork to do. Up to this match, I don't recall when it was stated that King Kong Bundy had anything to do at all with the $1 Million Corporation, but we'll get some info on that here pretty soon. Luger has Bam Bam in an armbar for at least a total of a third of this entire match at various points. It's just... Luger puts Bam Bam in an arm bar every other move. I kind of wondered if there was really anything else he could do with Bam Bam. Bam Bam, on the other hand, keeps showing off different moves, like he does a power slam, standing headbutt, flying headbutt from the top rope. Luger is rallying again. He puts Bam Bam back into an arm bar. And it really, really seems like Luger doesn't know what to do with Bam Bam. I don't know what the problem there was. Maybe as the heel, Bam Bam wasn't calling the match clearly, or there was some kind of miscommunication there, but it kept on stalling there in these holds. Now we've got King Kong Bundy coming down to the ring to join the $1 Million Corporation before we cut to a commercial. We come back from the commercial, and Jesus Christ, it's Adam Bomb and Mabel walking to the ring. Adam Bomb is in his new babyface colors. Mabel has his, bright purple whoop. There it is. Oshkosh Bigosh is on. They are apparently here to support Lex Luger. Bam Bam treats Luger to a DDT, showing yet again that he is able to conceptualize and then initiate more moves than Lex Luger. Bam Bam has gotten a few 2 counts on Luger by this point, and here is when my admiration for Bam Bam is proven. Bam Bam does a standing, I don't even know what to call it, a 2-legged heel kick on Luger. He was in a standing position, like inches in front of Luger, and jumps up to bring both of his heels together in a scissors motion to kick both sides of Lex's head at the same time. This was like a dead jump, I think is what you might call it. Like there wasn't a wind up to it. He was just standing there and then managed to get both of his feet up to Luger's head to kick him in both sides of the head at the same time. Super impressive.
It was great.
Yeah, like I distinctly had to note that for a guy as big as Bam Bam, this was athletic as fuck. This was huge. That was so fucking cool to see. So here, Vince confirms to us now that King Kong Bundy is part of the $1 Million Corporation. Again, I had to note, I still can't get over how great Bam Bam is at selling this match. He is an excellent physical heel. We've talked a few times about the different kinds of heels here in the WWF. Bam Bam is an excellent physical heel. He's just that brute monster that can swing a punch and make it look good, but he can also take a punch and make it look good. Bam Bam goes to bounce off the ropes, but runs into Tatanka, who was on the apron attempting, I guess, to distract the referee. It was kind of a bad camera angle from what I remember about this. Running into Tatanka, staggers Bam Bam. Somehow Luger gets a 3 count after a quick roll-up that took advantage of that stagger. it was a pretty horrible ham-fisted segue into the pin. As soon as the pin happens, Mabel and Adam Bomb join Luger in the ring to celebrate. There's some conflict going on here at ringside as Bam Bam and Tatanka are arguing about Tatanka's bad positioning, costing Bam Bam the match. And as we cut to commercial, Tatanka and Bam Bam are still arguing on the entranceway, and Lex Luger has spent way too much time in the ring waving that big, ridiculous American flag. To the best of my knowledge, there has been no explanation so far, or at least as far as I'm aware, as to why Mabel and Adam Bomb, of all people, have become Luger's support team here. Joe, please get us started talking about this match.
Yeah, I'll try to hit some things that you haven't already hit here. But yeah, I agree with the Mabel and Adam Bomb thing. Just two random guys and nobody explained that at all. Luger here is just, I mean, like you said, he doesn't really have any moves. It just kind of ruins the match. I don't know. I can't get into Lex Luger. I try to give him the benefit of the doubt here just because he was kind of put into a stupid gimmick and forced by Vince, but and he had moments where he would shine in WCW, but here it's just not working and it just keeps getting worse, in my opinion. Yeah. He does get a pop with his entrance and when he wins, but I don't know. There's just nothing, like, you can't connect to him when he's actually working in the ring at all. It distracts me with Bam Bam is his feet. You ever notice how his feet look kind of weird? Like it's almost like they're rolling outward when he's like standing. Do you guys notice that? It's almost like he needs like extra wide boots and doesn't have them.
I guess I've never noticed that.
No, I haven't seen that either. Huh.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Yeah, next time he wrestles, make sure you take notice of that. I just think it's distracting to me. I don't know why, but he's great. And we talk about his athleticism for being a big guy, but the thing I like about Bam Bam is he really understands the ring psychology as a heel. He takes his time. He slows things down. And we talked about Anvil last week. I think he could take some notes from Bam Bam on how a big man needs to work. Because Bam Bam's not out of breath, during this match. Vince, the Rocket's red glare again, like you mentioned, we got that again. He loves calling King Kong Bundy the walking condominium, and just losing his mind over the fact that Bam Bam is coming out with two other people, Tatanka and Ted DiBiase, as if it's and Nikolai Volkov, as if it's some like surprise. That's happening.
This was supposed to be a one-on-one.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the commentary wasn't that great, and this match, I don't know. I try to like Lex Luger because I know he has moments where he can be good, but I don't know. It's just not working. Still,
for me, this match was all about Bam Bam. I love Bam Bam, and he looked great in this match like he usually does. Lex, not so much. Bartlett, you brought up the arm bar, right?
Yeah.
And how he just kind of sits in that arm bar for minute after minute. And when I saw that, I'm looking at it and I'm going, that's usually the move someone like the Anvil does to catch his breath.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like why is Lex doing it to Bam Bam while Bam Bam's going up to the top rope to pull off some high flying moves? It just doesn't make any sense. One thing I was surprised both of you missed was as Bam Bam came down to the ring, Vince says, it's like his own Columbus Day parade. No bit of irony, the fact that Tatanka is part of this parade, Columbus Day parade. But yeah, as the match goes on, Macho Man talks about how Bam Bam, like Columbus, is going to discover what Lex Luger's all about. And I think we've already known for a long time what Lex Luger's all about, and it's shitty wrestling.
Yeah.
It's just really, looking through this match, as far as I'm concerned, it was all Bam Bam.
Yeah.
Bam Bam was the only one that pulled off any moves and he's twice the weight of Lex Luger, yet this big bodybuilding Ico pro motherfucker can't pull off a single decent looking move. It's just, why?
What happened to the bionic elbow forearm thing?
Yeah. No elbow pads needed anymore. He's got the exposed weapon.
Yeah, he gave it to Bam Bam and he kicked out at 2. Like, I guess that just doesn't exist anymore. I don't know.
Doesn't matter. The other thing, we're just going to go to commentary because, as I said, the match is just Bam Bam's great. Lex Luger looks like shit. But another really great line from Macho Man, and he said it before, and when he said it a few episodes ago, I just assumed that it was just a basic fuck up and he wouldn't say it again. But he said it yet again this week that Tatanka disappointed Native Americans all over the world. Yeah, let that sink in. Native Americans all over the world. So
this time on Columbus Day.
Yeah.
Yes, this time on Columbus Day. Absolutely.
Especially painful.
Really, the only thing that I thought was somewhat entertaining out of Luger, it was just a normal classic sleeper hold. You know, Bam Bam puts the sleeper hold on Lex and we get the classic 2 count, and then on the 3rd he rallies. I always love seeing that, cheap 3 count rally. I don't know, I'm a sucker for it. And the last thing I'll end, you guys were both kind of wondering why it was that Mabel and Adam Bomb came down to the ring. And the only thing that I could kind of come up with is the fact that we're leading into Survivor Series. So we're trying to build a bit of a team for Luger here to have some people on his side to put into a Survivor Series match. So that's my thought on that.
So I actually have a theory about that, and this is probably, I don't know where we're going to go with it, but I will get into it here in the next segment whenever we talk about these clips from Superstars, but I think it ties it all together nicely. As far as this match goes, I'll take you one step further, Ryan, and include everything going on here, that's commentary included, and say that Bam Bam was the only thing worthwhile happening. Usually we can find some pretty, solid entertainment from the Macho Man and Vince McMahon. They were a little off this time around. Throughout this entire Raw, to me, the Macho Man sounded like he was maybe had like a throat bug, or like, it's kind of hard to tell with him, but he kind of sounded a little subdued. He was a little rougher in his speech, and he was a little less energetic in some of his responses. And it's all speculation at this point. We really don't know what was going on. But if we take all of the different factors,
maybe he was tired out from the parade.
Yeah, he did attend that parade with Susan Lucci and what appeared to be the Archbishop of the Catholic Diocese of Utica, New York. I think that was in Utica. It was definitely an Archbishop, though.
No, that was in New York City, wasn't it?
Yeah, New York City.
Okay. It looked a little small. The parade in general looked a little small.
It's not the St. Patrick's Day or Thanksgiving parade. It's just the Columbus Day parade.
Which was also featured in an episode of The Sopranos.
Exactly. Chief Strongbow attended.
Oh, God. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves.
Chief Strongbow's a made guy.
Jesus Christ. So we're going to move it on here to clips from Superstars, I almost said, which is kind of accurate here. Superstars and the Heartbreak Hotel. And this is where I'm going to lay this theory on you. So we come back from commercial, and Vince says that even though we're part of the new generation, we're going to look at a different generation. Yet again showing us that the new generation line is horseshit. This past weekend on Superstars, Bitter Bob Backlund was the guest on Heartbreak Hotel with Shawn Michaels and Diesel. Michaels apparently was admiring when Backlund clamped on that chicken wing to that young man. It's not really made clear here if that is a reference to the match last week with a jobber named Gary Scott, or if it is in reference to the week before that when Joe's father, Lou Gianfrido, was sacrificed to the Publians. But Michaels does go on to say that he and Big Daddy Cool want to party with Bob Backlund. I thought that was kind of entertaining. Backlund says that Big Daddy Cool and Shawn Michaels aren't in his league, his generation, or his society. He's pretty sure that they wouldn't accept them in his generation. And this is where the idea hit me. So we've mentioned before that part of some of the things that Vince is doing is in response to Hulk Hogan going to WCW. He's trying to distance himself from anything Hogan. He's trying to latch on to whatever he can. You know, Luger is the new American hero. And then we get this new generation thing after the Luger as the new American hero strategy kind of starts to shit the bed a little bit. And sure enough, we also get, at about this same time, Bob Backlund. We get the continued mentioning of Bob Backlund as the old generation. We also get the return of the British Bulldog. We get the return of the Anvil. We get this babyface turn from Adam Bomb, complete with new music and new colors. And we get Mabel and Adam Bomb showing up to the ring to support Lex Luger. Now, my theory is that Vince realized that the whole new generation thing was bullshit because he kept on having people that were from the old generation on Raw, and he decided to capitalize on it. So taking all of this into consideration, look at what we're working with now. We've got Backlund, who is now openly, verbally calling himself the old generation. We've got new heels showing up like King Kong Bundy that are distinctly part of the old generation. And I think that the overall strategy here went from Vince realizing that the whole new generation tagline was bullshit to embracing the fact that it's bullshit and using that to further separate the WWF from Hogan and the WCW. Now he's pretty much lumping in old generation bad guys, new generation, my guys, good guys. What do you think about that?
I think you're right. I have some stuff in my news segment later related to Hulk Hogan, but
okay.
Yeah, and another important thing to note is the new generation stuff started whenever Hogan went to WCW, because there was like a 3-month time period there, I believe, where actually it was probably longer than 3 months, but there was a time period where Hogan left WWF. And then some time had passed, and then he joined WCW, and that's where we started with this new generation stuff. So he's like really bitter at the fact that not only is Hogan gone, but now he's with WCW.
I really think, because I mean, it was really pissing me off watching this. And then we get to this point going into Heartbreak Hotel where Vince like explicitly says, even though we're part of the new generation, we're going to look at a different generation. And then we go to a heel. And in the Heartbreak Hotel, the heel is interacting with these two new generation baby faces. And the heel distinctly calls himself, like he isolates himself as his generation, his society. You know, they wouldn't accept them, meaning Shawn Michaels and Diesel in his generation. So that's really where it kind of clicked in my head that I think they're just trying to, and like I said, with King Kong Bundy coming in, with the exception of Owen and the Anvil, what other major heels are there really? And I mean major heels.
Michaels and Diesel are heels right now, even though Diesel's basically a babyface to the fans. But yeah, I see what you mean. But just to go back on the Heartbreak Hotel segment, I do like what Diesel and Michaels are doing. They're sort of playing along with the Backlund is crazy storyline. Yeah, like he's wacko. So I thought they were pretty funny.
The line from Backlund when he says quagmire in a sea of hypocrisy, and just the look that Michaels gives Diesel after he says that.
Yeah, they're just looking at each other like, what the fuck is he talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, Michaels does the counterclockwise circular motion next to his head while Backlund's talking. And yeah. Did you guys notice after Backlund is like getting into his speech about quagmired in a sea of hypocrisy, yeah, he's not going to vacillate from one idea to another. Did you guys notice that along with his 3-piece suit, Backlund is wearing a mouth guard?
No.
It's only, he keeps it on his...
I didn't.
Yeah, he keeps it on his top palate there. So whenever you're watching, you can't see his front teeth. It's just a line of, the white plastic on his upper teeth.
Are you sure that it wasn't just his dentures falling out?
Yeah, see, I saw his teeth, but I thought it looked more like they were all bonded together.
No, I'm pretty sure it was like a solid line of white on his upper front teeth. And I distinctly was under the impression that it was a mouth guard like you would have in a real wrestling match. And I thought that it was part of the ongoing
That's
craziness.
Not true.
No, you don't use mouth guards in wrestling.
I never did. Headgear, but never a mouth guard.
Not a maybe I'm saying the wrong thing, like a bite guard.
Yeah, nothing. I wore nothing in my mouth.
How many teeth do you have left?
Full set, my brother.
I don't know. It just okay. Maybe I could totally be the asshole on this one. It's entirely possible.
Well, you are an asshole, but I didn't notice the mouth guard, but I will try to pay attention to that now because I'm usually bored during Bob Backlund's matches.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I thought it would be. Yeah, I took it that way because it would be one of those things that he does, throwing a little wrestling reference in along with his 3-piece suit. Anyway, I mean, we really don't need to talk about this anymore. It was a kind of a cruddy Bob Backlund promo. Whenever we're coming out of this clip, we fade out, and this fades straight into our next match. Mabel defeating Reno Riggins by pinfall in 2 minutes and 25 seconds. Reno Riggins is our jobber of the week. Take it, Ryan.
Thank you, Jason. Reno Riggins is the jobber of the week. Reno Riggins was born Neil Hargrove in Nashville, Tennessee on January 13th, 1967. While studying chemistry at Tennessee State University, he would decide to leave school and begin training to become a professional wrestler in 1986. He was the final student to train under Tojo Yamamoto before his death in 1992. Hargrove would debut in the WWF as Reno Riggins in March of 1988. He would spend the next 4 years in the WWF as enhancement talent, competing against some of the company's biggest names, such as Ted DiBiase, the British Bulldog, and the Repo Man. Leaving the WWF in 1992, he began competing in the USWA and eventually won their title, the Southern Heavyweight Champion, from Brian Christopher, Jerry Lawler's son, in August of 1992. In 1993, Hargrave would briefly join Smoky Mountain Wrestling before rejoining the WWF in early 94. During this stint, though, he would mainly work as a heel jobber, putting over young up-and-comers like the 1-2-3 Kid and, like in this match, Mabel. In 1995, he would decide to leave wrestling. However, his retirement was short-lived, and in 1997, he would return to the world of wrestling, joining a tag team with Stephen Dunn, one half of the WWF tag team Well Done. Hargrove and Dunn would see tag team gold 7 times across 4 different promotions from 1997 to 2000. Together, they would also appear in the first ever Brian Pillman Memorial Show in 1998. Hargrove now resides in his hometown of Nashville, Tennessee, where he handles the advertising, booking, as well as color commentary for the Tennessee-based promotion Showtime All Wrestling.
You forgot to pronounce Yamamoto the correct way, like The Undertaker would say it. Yamamoto.
Well, thank you for that, Ryan. Interesting as always.
I like the dice on Reno's boots. I was liking that during this match.
Honestly, I did not notice that.
Yeah, they were like red boots with 2 dice on them.
Well, what I did notice is that they are apparently no longer able to afford Oscar on the microphone.
And what I noticed is it sounds just as terrible when anyone else is rapping. They can't translate it to the television. It's just, you can't hear anything.
No, it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah, it's the early precursor to mumble rap. In case you didn't get it by now, Mabel is doing the rapping here, and he is rapping his way to the ring. And it sounded, I mean, it's like we just said, it was really hard to understand it, but it really sounded like the exact same thing that Oscar used to say. So, I mean, we haven't gone for new lyrics or anything here. Only God knows where Mo wound up here. Last we heard a few months ago, this would be back during our Raw So Far series. I do believe it was part 2 of Raw So Far 1994. Mo got injured. Yeah, Mo. There ain't no Mo. Okay.
No Mo.
Yeah. Reno Riggins is in the ring already, waiting to literally be squashed here. I had to note, so not that Oscar was all that great, but he was much, much better at the whole rapping thing than Mabel. And we're going to cut to a commercial before the match gets started. And as we're fading to this commercial, Vince says, "When we return, Mabel will be doing his thing." We'll get a quick Slim Jim commercial out of that and return to the match. Mabel looks absolutely horrible in his bright purple getup. He's moving extremely slow in the ring as usual. Reno Riggins, on the other hand, doesn't look bad physically and is also doing an excellent job of attempting to enhance this match. I mean, he doesn't really have a whole lot to work with in Mabel, but Reno Riggins does a fantastic job throughout this match as an enhancement talent. I think that in this match, he showed us how one can be a jobber, but then transcend the role of jobber to become enhancement talent. He wasn't just a jobber here. He was enhancement talent. At the beginning of this match, there's a lot of time wasted as Riggins calls for a test of strength. And to paint the picture here, Riggins' height comes up to about Mabel's shoulder. So when Riggins raises his hand for the test of strength, Mabel raises his hand the whole way up, and it winds up being a good 3 feet above Riggins' head. Mabel uses this to taunt Riggins, and Riggins' solution is to climb to the second rope in the corner and raise his hand to about the same height as Mabel's. I thought that was really clever. That was something that actually showed some character and thoughtfulness from the enhancement talent here. Mabel locks up the one hand with Riggins, and immediately Riggins is in pain and holding his wrist, and he just can't take this one-handed test of strength with this monster. Riggins uses the additional height to land a punch on Mabel to release the hold, then jumps down to deliver a double axe handle to Mabel's back while Mabel is staggered. And again, really good enhancement talent work from Riggins here. He manages to get in a fair amount of action in what is a short match with a fat, slow behemoth here. Riggins continues to take advantage of the situation with some punches. It doesn't last long. Mabel puts him into a body slam, but then misses with an elbow at the mat. Riggins does a two-handed slap to both sides of Mabel's head, gets some good sound out of it. It looked great, sounded great, and puts Mabel briefly into a headlock. Mabel transitions the headlock into a back body drop, capitalizes with a big leg drop for the 3 count. And after the 3 count, they waste no time in getting the microphone back into Mabel's hand so he can get back to rapping. Vince says,
"That's it, Mabel. Get down with it."
Ryan, get us started.
Get down on it, Ryan.
All right. I think, from your description of this match, it's pretty clear why I picked Reno Riggins as the jobber.
Absolutely.
He was the clear standout. One of my favorite points was to start the match when Riggins gets in his 3-point stance, his football stance, and tries to run at Mabel and just bounces off him. Just to tie in a little bit of info that I didn't put into the Jobber of the Week segment, Reno was a high school football star. So this was a bit of an Al Bundy moment, I guess, for him as he tried to insert his high school football prowess here. I also really enjoyed Vince saying, I think Macho did too, but they say that Mabel was a quarter of a ton heavier than Reno.
Yeah.
But you've already kind of touched on it. It's a piece of shit match. Mabel, as usual, just looks like absolute garbage in this match. But Reno, he's trying to sell his heart out here. And he really does a fantastic job, only to have it ruined by Mabel. The only other thing, I guess, to really point out here is when Reno Riggins first comes out, Vince says, no relation to John Riggins, which,
Yes.
If anyone out there is not familiar, John Riggins is a Hall of Fame running back for the New York Jets as well as the Washington Redskins. So there's a little bit more of a football tie-in. He then goes on to say Mabel has no relation to Barney, even though he's wearing purple.
Yeah.
And he's huge.
And he's enormous, right? I'd say he's probably bigger than the Barney costume is, but that's just me. And I guess I'll just end it with, I got my wish from last week. We got to see Mabel rapping. So,
Yeah.
way to go.
John Riggins, I think, was on the original Tecmo Bowl game too, I think, right?
That would make sense, time frame wise. Yeah.
I'm not even going to waste time and talk about this match. You guys already said everything that I kind of wanted to say about this match. What I will say is Vince mentioned a Larry King interview with Marlon Brando.
Yeah.
Saying that Marlon needs to get a new tie and a pair of shoes. And I thought, well, I'm going to look this interview up. And I watched the whole damn thing. Obviously 1994. I don't know anything about Marlon Brando other than The Godfather, obviously, and a couple other movies. He's
a bizarre individual.
My God, is he bizarre? These interviews did not disappoint. I watched one with Larry King and one with Connie Chung, and at the end of the Larry King interview, they sing this song together, and then Marlon gives Larry King a huge kiss on the lips.
Jesus Christ.
Larry King is extremely uncomfortable.
My understanding is that no one liked working with him.
Yeah.
Anytime I've heard an interview from someone that has worked with him, they were like, it was the most difficult thing in the world.
I guess he was like good buddies with Michael Jackson, so that's pretty much all you need to know. I mean, he's pretty fucked up in the head, but the one thing I thought was funny in the interviews was that he basically just comes out and says he doesn't give a shit about acting. He just does it for the money. Like he's both interviews I watched, he's just like, I just do it for the money.
At least he's honest.
Yeah.
And it's funny because he's heralded as one of the greatest character actors of all time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could have been a contender.
Yeah.
Look what they did to my baby boy.
So yeah, that's what I got out of this match.
An excellent Marlon Brando interview is the result of this Mabel Reno Riggins match. Good. I'm glad one of us got something positive out of it, because I sure as hell didn't.
Whoop, there it is.
Yeah. No, I take that back. We got Reno Riggins out of it, and that was pretty good. So silver linings.
Yeah, Reno was a great enhancement talent.
He was. Thank Friar Ferguson for Reno Riggins.
Thank Friar Ferguson. So after this match, we're going to have clips from earlier today at the Columbus Day Parade and a commercial for next week's Raw. So like we were talking about before, Macho Man was at the Columbus Day Parade riding a float with the Grand Marshal of the parade, Susan Lucci, 90s soap opera star. I can't believe I remember that. What looked to be an archbishop, and they were in support of something called Cooley's Anemia and the Cooley's Anemia Foundation. I'm not sure what that is. I didn't look it up, but if you have Cooley's Anemia, then the Macho Man was out there in 1994 fighting for you.
I did look it up.
Did you?
So it's a foundation for a rare disease called thalassemia. It's a rare blood disorder that affects the body's creation of hemoglobin. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, but yeah, it's a blood disorder that stops the body from creating as much hemoglobin as needed.
Mesothelioma?
Oh, gosh. All right, moving along. So after this deal with the Columbus Day Parade, this is going to transition to a commercial in black and white. Double J, Jeff Jarrett, is devious. The motor mouth from the Music City used trickery to give a low blow to this pint-sized trickster, meaning Dink there. Now he's ready to make short work of the life-sized version, Doink the Clown. The Master of Mischief is not about to kiss and make up with Double J. Instead, Double J plans to make this clown look like a bozo. Doink the Clown versus Double J Jeff Jarrett next week on Monday Night Raw. These Todd Pettengill voiceovers, yeah, I'm sure. We're not going to be able to escape it. These Todd Pettengill voiceovers for some of these commercials are just horrendous. Like some of these forced phrases, like now he's ready to make short work after he's talking about ding, just stupid. Make this clown look like bozo. Anyway, so we come out of this commercial and we are already ready to get started with our next match. Owen Hart with Jim the Anvil Neidhart defeating John Crystal by submission in 3 minutes and 41 seconds. When we're coming back from that last commercial, Owen Hart and the Anvil are climbing into the ring where John Crystal is already waiting. I had to note, High Energy is blasting on the house PA, and yet again, I am breaking my fucking neck to this song. It's amazing. They're projecting this really cool picture of Owen wearing a crown in the style of a playing card down onto the ring. So imagine what a king looks like on your average, playing card with head pointing in both directions up and down. And it's the same thing, except it's Owen wearing his King of the Ring crown. It was really cool. Owen is wearing the Hitman style glasses, and there's this funny little scene where he hops up on the top rope in the corner and the Anvil comes over and removes them in like this psych up ceremony. It was pretty entertaining. The bell rings. We go into it. Owen's using dirty tactics. During the tie-up, he grabs his opponent's mullet to get some grip to drive him into the corner. So I had to note here, Owen Hart was never the biggest guy in wrestling, but he makes his opponent, John Crystal, look tiny here by comparison. We get an example of Owen's fantastic speed and timing with a single leg takedown as John Crystal is coming back from the ropes. Macho Man comments on the speed here, saying we almost didn't even see it. And that's not exaggeration. It was fast and it was tight. Owen just starts to lay in throws, holds, a variety of ways, inflicting pain on his opponent, and then just stands over him, yelling at him to get up. Vince informs us that apparently Jack Tunney is going to be on The Late Show with David Letterman singing a duet with Barry Manilow for some fucking reason. Vince then goes on to say...
I'm pretty sure that was a joke.
Yeah.
All this stuff that he's spouting off during this match is just... I don't understand it.
Yeah. Vince, after that, he goes on to say that allegedly George Lucas is writing 3 more Star Wars movies and is planning on giving the part of Princess Leia to Bull Nakano. Macho says that Bull Nakano is an old flame of his, and Vince brings up Roseanne again.
They're clearly bored by this match.
Yeah, and it's really, really shitty that they are doing this. This is something that I'm kind of starting... The more we talk about it here on Wrasslin Raw, the more it kind of sticks in my head, and the more I notice it and pay attention to it whenever we're watching these episodes. It's kind of like... I don't know, mildly disrespectful to the match going on in the ring. At least just call the fucking match. Like, we know it's a squash match. You don't have to talk about how on Fox, the true story of Yoko Roseanne is going to be happening, brought to you by the good folks that make Crisco oil. Like, while he's saying this, Owen lands a great belly-to-belly and transitions that into a sharpshooter. He gets the win, and the referee calls for the bell. Like, especially with somebody like Owen Hart. Owen Hart doesn't give you a crappy match. I can't think of a single match that he's been in that has been bad. Like, there have been a couple that were like subpar for Owen, but bad matches? Okay, if you need to get all of this shit about Roseanne out of your system, do it during the Mabel match. Not here where you have Owen giving you things that you can call, that you can do your job as a fucking commentator and help to build the story with. You know what I mean? It just, like I said, I've been noticing it more and more, and it's like kind of really starting to bother me. After the win, Anvil comes up. They start to torment Crystal. They drag him out of the way of the picture of Owen being projected into the middle of the ring, and once again, break your fucking neck for High Energy. Joe, thoughts?
I thought they were going to do the glasses snapping on the face again,
so
but they didn't.
I think maybe the crowd got it after they went to the commercial. I just don't think we got to see it.
Yeah,
I had hoped.
I don't know. I'm still really enjoying watching Owen, but I hate the Anvil right now. Like I kind of wish it would have just kept going with Owen and Brett feuding without the Anvil, but I don't know. It sucks because I love Owen. I hate the Anvil with him right now. The match was good. I mean, for a jobber match, this was probably the best jobber match of the day for sure of this show. I can with Anvil, I can barely even tell what he's yelling. He's just like yelling into the camera.
Yeah.
You know, when we talked about Owen yelling into the camera, it's fucking hilarious.
Yes.
You can tell what he's saying. It's all about Brett.
Yeah.
Anvil, I don't even think mentioned Brett's name. He's just yelling. He's going to have a heart attack.
Yeah.
Anvil's basically just screaming stuff like, come on, and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's what I think of this whole thing with Owen and Anvil right now. And yeah, Vince was just obnoxious on commentary.
Yeah. I mean, as you both noted already, it's a shame because Owen Hart looked extremely sharp in the ring like he always does. And Johnny Boy here, he didn't do a terrible job. I mean, you know, he was enhancing it here, but Vince and the Macho Man just didn't give a shit. They weren't going to pay attention. And it is a real shame because when the commentary goes away from the match, it's hard to concentrate on the match. It really starts to take you out of the match. And even when you have someone like Owen Hart in there who's doing a good job, it's just tough to pay attention to when you have the announcers going off on tangents about Roseanne Barr and Star Wars. So that's a real shame. The only other thing that I really have to mention here was when Johnny first came out, his face-wise, reminded me of Shane McMahon. There was just something about him that kind of looked like Shane McMahon to me. Outside of that, just like Vince McMahon didn't want me to, I don't have anything else to say.
Yeah, see, I didn't notice the Shane McMahon lookalike thing because I was too busy beating my face against reality to the beat of high energy. We've said all there is to say about this. This is an excellent example of bad commentating at ringside. This is commentating that isn't constructive. It doesn't add to the storytelling. All it does is distract you from what we're here to see. I'm not here to hear Vince talk about fucking Roseanne. I'm here to see Owen Hart wrestle. Like that's always a highlight. I like watching Owen Hart wrestle. But instead, I hear about fucking Yoko Roseanne or whatever it was. We'll leave it at that.
If the announcers ignore the match, so am I.
Yeah. And, you know, it's especially hard. I don't know about you two, but it's especially hard for me because part of what we do here on Wrasslin Raw is we watch the matches. We pay attention to the commentary. Like we try to take in all of it so that we can give a good discussion of this stuff. And whenever these two things aren't syncing up, whenever you have Owen Hart doing stuff in the ring and commentary doing something completely different and unrelated, it starts to detract from both. I have a hard time doing, you know, my show notes and prepping for recording the podcast here with you guys. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Vince McMahon is the reason that we have -5 subscribers. Because, you know, it's shit like this that
Goddamn, pal.
we get into like these tangents about the commentary and like, you know what? Yeah, sometimes it's great and hilarious, but in a case like this, it's distracting and inappropriate.
If it's a quick hitter, I don't mind. Like the Marlon Brando thing.
Right.
It's like one time, but yeah, the Roseanne stuff, and then this stuff just doesn't make any sense. Like,
yeah,
no,
it's just totally random shit that he's making up about Barry Manilow.
Yes,
George Lucas,
yes.
David Letterman, and Bull Nakano playing Princess Leila.
It's not funny. Like, it's supposed to be comedy material, I guess, but it's not funny, and it's crazy to hear that. Now, currently, Vince is in the announcer's ears, screaming at them on what to say. But he was saying this stupid shit in 1994.
All right, well, we need to move on from this because there's no sense dwelling on the negativity there. Next up in Raw, we have clips from Superstars this past week. Ryan, I'm sure you're going to enjoy this. The Undertaker and Paul Bearer with the urn are in yet another section of that foggy Memorial Auditorium boiler room. The Undertaker starts with Yokozuna, and he does not do the Japanese speed talking on the name this time. He says Yokozuna instead of Yokozuna. Did you honestly think you were capable of destroying the most powerful entity in the World Wrestling Federation today? Do you honestly think that you can put an end to The Undertaker? Yokozuna, the time has come for you to pay for your crimes. It's time for you to face the Reaper once more. We then get Paul Bearer. Oh yes, Yokozuna, the Heart Attack Tour. Because of your unwillingness to listen to the warnings of my Undertaker, Yokozuna, look at the view from your new resting place. And we get a shot of the purple velvet lining of the double-wide, double-deep casket. Feel the beat of excitement as the Heart Attack Tour makes its way across the USA.
They never transition well out of the Undertaker promos.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, like you get that, and then you get Todd Pettingzoo plugging the Heart Attack Tour.
And I did have it mentioned here that this time we're in the same smoky or steamy boiler room, but when they cut the Paul Bear, it is so smoky you could barely see his face.
Yeah. This one was especially bad. I mean, they've all been very steamy, but this one was bad.
I got to say, out of the three that we've seen, these were my favorite things that were said. Time for you to face the Reaper once more. And Paul Bearer saying, have a view of your final resting place. I love that.
Yeah. I'm not going to say it's my favorite. It's good. Don't get me wrong. But what was that? The first week, your carcass in the casket.
My favorite is your carcass will go in the casket and your soul belongs to me.
Yes, that right there.
That was a good one.
That's what had you getting some all natural Blue Chew going on over there.
It was.
It got his carcass a little tingly.
Necrophilia.
Oh, ew. So before we cut to another commercial, Vince pops in to say that we are going to have King Kong Bundy in action next. I have to say that I was kind of looking forward to this only because I know nothing about King Kong Bundy, and I came away as a much, much worse off human being as a result. But going into our next match, King Kong Bundy with the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, defeating Mike Corey by pinfall in 2 minutes and 44 seconds. Before we get started with the match here, I've noticed that we're getting a lot of great shots of the dark-haired Raw ring girl, and I wanted to give our listeners a little background and information on her. She's somebody that we have been noticing since we started watching Raw in January of 93. She's been an intermittent ring girl going back the whole way to January of 93. Usually when they have ring girls, they alternate between some randoms, but they always come back to her. Even whenever they had the middle-aged, overweight housewife ring girls in there as a joke, they would always rotate back to this girl. She's only ever there whenever they're in the New York area. She's absolutely gorgeous. She's got dark brown, black hair. Her name is Themis Clarides. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It seems like a very Greek name. Themis Clarides. She was a competitive bodybuilder and swimsuit model back at the time of these episodes of Raw. Based upon her career there and her career here at Raw, she was able to transition herself into public office. And as of June 2018, at least, that was the most recent major information I could find. As of June 2018, she was the House Minority Speaker for the Connecticut House of Representatives. A pretty big figure in Connecticut state politics. I thought that was super cool. We've got this gorgeous ring girl in 1993 who, as of 2018, House Minority Speaker, Connecticut State Legislature. And as of June 2018, she's aged like fine wine. At age 52, she looks just as good as she did back in 1994.
I'd vote for her.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will have to look her up because, yeah, I actually had it noted during the Lex Luger and Bam Bam match that she was looking extra hot on this episode.
Yeah, throughout this entire episode, we get a lot of good close-up shots of her smiling, and not just, body shots from behind or whatever, but up close, natural beauty type shots, But anyway, I digress. Like I said, I wanted to fill in our listeners on that because she is an unnamed kind of common fixture here in Raw. We always wind up coming back to her. She's always there. She is almost as ubiquitous throughout these Raws as Howard Finkel, as Vince and Savage. She's always there. Anyway, just a little Wrasslin Raw love to Themis Clarities.
It also helps because this next match doesn't have much going on.
Yeah. So Mike Corey's waiting in the ring as King Kong Bundy makes his way down to the entranceway. He comes out with the $1 Million Man and to the $1 Million Man's music. This is where my disappointment starts. I was hoping he would have his own original music after those really creative promos we had the past 2 weeks for his introducing his arrival. This is where Vince calls Bundy a walking condominium, which was pretty clever. Apparently, King Kong Bundy insists on pinning his opponents, not with a 3 count, but with a 5 count. What a quaint little eccentricity there. The match gets going. Bundy is pretty slow. He clods around the ring. I noted here that he is a really odd-shaped human being. Like his torso and legs and no neck into his bald head. He's just really oddly shaped. Bundy tosses Corey around. Vince says that Bundy is intimidating Corey much in the same way that Ricky Lake intimidated Randy Savage when Randy Savage was on the Ricky Lake show earlier this week. Bundy's doing a lot of talking in the ring, but I'm having trouble understanding him because Vince keeps on talking about random shit here again. And I was kind of hoping that maybe some of you guys had some of the stuff that Bundy was saying noted. Because, like we were talking about before, between Vince's stupid shit and this, I couldn't keep track of it both. Like for example, Vince asks the Macho Man if he's seen the movie Ed Wood, because in that, George the Animal Steel is in it and is in his prime, green tongue and all. If anybody's ever seen Ed Wood, they know it's a black and white fucking movie. You can't see a green tongue, even if it has a green tongue. And George the Animal Steel is nowhere near in his prime. And it's funny because Vince walks back all of that. He says, it's George the Animal Steel was in his prime, green tongue and all. Well, I guess they didn't really have the green tongue. And, well, yeah, they filmed the movie in black and white. Yes, Vince, you should know that before you just say this shit. Eventually, Bundy gets the 3 count, and he does indeed force the referee to count to 5. The bell is rung, and the match is over. Joe, what do you think?
Oh, man, just to keep things moving here, I really don't have anything to say here on this. King Kong Bundy, rest in peace. I think we lost him this year.
No shit.
I think it was
not aware.
2019. Yeah. He's 39 here, and he looks way older than that to me.
Yeah, he does.
The walking condominium, you might as well just start using that like you did with the martial arts expert with Kwang, because I have a feeling we're going to be hearing that a lot here coming up on these next episodes. But yeah, this isn't working at all. Especially, with the crowd, they don't give a shit about this.
Yeah, Joe, I'm in complete agreement with you. This match was really slow. They've done this multiple week lead up for King Kong Bundy, and he looks terrible in the ring. He is slow. It just looks really pathetic. The only thing I'm going to mention, because just like you, I really didn't have anything to note here because it was just such a bad match. But just to kind of add on to what Bartlett, you were talking about with the George the Animal Steel and Vince talking about being in the Ed Wood movie, just to add a little bit of a wrestling connection to this movie. One of the original movies from Ed Wood that they're filming with George the Animal Steel is a 50s sci-fi movie called Plan 9 from Outer Space, which starred a then Swedish wrestler named Tor Johnson. So that's the character that George the Animal Steel was portraying. And it is shocking how much they look alike if you go out there and look up old pictures of Tora Johnson.
Yeah.
So, the most notable thing from this match is Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Yeah. Widely hailed as the single worst movie ever recorded.
It is a really bad movie.
Yeah. So we're going to keep it moving here to clips of the Doink Lawler feud. Oh, boy. So we're going to highlight some pranks being played on each other by Jerry the King Lawler and Doink the Clown. We go to Superstars this past weekend, and this clip is at the commentator's booth with Vince McMahon. Lawler's arguing with Doink, who is on what I'll call the big screen. It's probably like a projection screen, I think. It's like multi-screens. I'm not really sure what to call it, but Lawler is standing up, arguing, and Dink sneaks up behind him with the cream pie. Dink plants the cream pie on the seat of Lawler, just as Doink is saying, "Why don't you sit down and take it easy?" Lawler sits in the cream pie, and Vince can't stop yelling, "You just sat down in a pie! Look what you did! You just sat down in a pie! Look what you did! You just sat down in a pie!" And I clearly remember watching this as it was happening back in the day. I was wondering when we were going to get to this exact moment. I saw it when it happened on Superstars. As a kid, I was usually able to watch Superstars more consistently than I was able to watch Monday Night Raw.
I used to catch Superstars after church every week.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't go to church, but I used to catch it on Sundays.
I don't go anymore, but I did then.
Thank Friar Ferguson. So after this pie thing, Vince says, "I've heard of pie in the face, but this is ridiculous." It makes no goddamn sense at all. We're going to come back to King's Court, all set up and ready to go here. King's Court getting tedious, but before we go to King's Court, Ryan, do you have anything to say about this little vignette with the pie?
No, sorry.
Okay, Joe.
I can't believe he sat down in a pie.
You just sat down in a pie.
All right, so King's Court. King's already in the ring when we come here, and King starts off by calling everybody peons, of course. He says this is going to be one of the shortest King's Courts ever, and everybody loves that. Me included, Ryan. Like I already knew as soon as he said that all three of us were going to be like, yes, thank Friar Ferguson.
Thank Friar Ferguson.
It's going to be short because we're going to talk about short people, and he hates short people. And at this point, I can't help but think of that damn Randy Newman song, and it jarred me out of the wrestling mindset.
Short people.
That jarred me out of the wrestling mindset momentarily. He's talking about Dink, that little sawed-off runt.
Do you think that's is that the song that Jack Tunney and Barry Manilow are going to sing later?
That would be perfect.
On David Letterman.
Yeah. So he's talking about Dink, and Lawler would like to sink that low, but he can't bend down that far. Hardy har har. He does have somebody that can, however. Here we get clips of Lawler popping Dink's balloons, breaking Dink's tricycle. He says Dink is still underfoot. You've heard of the 7 dwarves. There was Happy and Grumpy and Sleepy and Sneezy, etc. Well, Dink is the 8th dwarf, and he's ugly. I'll tell you who I've got, and I'm going to bring them out right now. I want everybody to welcome Queasy. Queasy is a midget in a king outfit. He's got the crown, he's got the cape, he's got the one-strap shoulder wrestling singlet, the works. And he just comes bebopping on down the entranceway. I'm pretty sure for me personally, this is like the official point. Not that it was like all that great before, but this is the official point where it goes beyond being the tiniest bit entertaining and has officially become tiresome. All of this, just this entire thing. I don't think English is Queasy's native tongue. There are some communications errors between the two of them when the king is trying to talk to him, like they're missing each other's lines or something. And really, Queasy just wants to bebop around the ring. He does like kind of this rolling, bopping gait everywhere he goes. The king says, we're going to go ahead and leave so that all these peons can kiss your little feet on the way out. and we cut to commercial. Ryan, do you have anything to say about King's Court here?
Yes, very tiresome the King's Court is becoming. I have two notes. One is how terrible Queasy is on the mic. Nothing he says makes sense. So they make it pretty short, thankfully. And number two, Queasy reminded me of a midget Jack Black.
Yeah. Yeah. Good call there.
Outside of that, that's it. That's all of my notes for King Court this week.
Yeah, I know this should be funny, but it's not. I just can't find myself laughing at any of this right now. And it's sad that it's another, 6 weeks until we get the Survivor Series. So I have a feeling we're going to have to put up with this cartoon shit a lot more here.
It's like some midget in a groundhog outfit popped out of a hole and saw its shadow, and now we've got 6 more weeks of this bullshit.
I mean, it seems like this whole Jerry the King Lawler Doink feud has been going on for a decade now.
Yeah.
It's just been so long.
But and like I said before, it's crazy how like they went from Lawler and Bret Hart being feud of the year in the Observer magazine to getting Lawler feuding with Duke the Dumpster and now this shitty Doink.
Fake Doink.
Yeah.
Which you bring up a great point. If there's anything positive to be said of any of this, it's that it has shuffled the Dumpster off to the side. We haven't seen him since we've started to focus on Doink v. Lawler here. Yeah, we're just going to leave that where it is. Not that great. We're going to have some quick commercials here. We got the same Action Zone commercial that we got last week. Mike Zitka, Greg Gumball, and Zeon Danders. We're going to come back from this commercial and go into our final match of the night. The Head Shrinkers, Fatu and Sion, with Afa and Captain Lou Albano, defeating Corey Student and JS Storm by pinfall in 1 minute and 42 seconds. When we come back from that commercial, the Head Shrinkers party is all coming down to the ring, down the entranceway. And man, there's just a lot of them. They're just always there.
Where's Yoko?
Yeah, off somewhere, sweating, I'm sure. Corey Student and JS Storm are already in the ring waiting. Vince makes the comment that Sion is more barbaric than the other members of the Head Shrinkers. Joe, remind us why that's funny.
Yeah, I think it's because he was the barbarian.
Powers of deduction are amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. We're not even taking ourselves seriously at this point here on Raw. Sion is first in the action for the Head Shrinkers after the bell rings, and he mows through both of the jobbers here. I have it noted that JS Storm was the guy wearing white tights with black stripes. He looks like the prop comedian, the Amazing Jonathan. You guys know who I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Doesn't he look like the Amazing Jonathan? Like I was waiting for him to pull out a saw and like saw into his arm and like pull it out like nothing happened.
I didn't even think of that, but you're absolutely correct.
Looked exactly like him. So Sion just no-sells everything they throw at him. And after a big boot to the Amazing Jonathan's face, he gets the 1, 2, 3, and this match is thankfully over quickly. And Ryan, what did you think of this match here?
Well, I mean, it was the definition of a squash match, that's for sure.
Yeah.
The barbarian comes in here and just wreaks havoc on everyone. And then really the only thing that I saw from this match that stood out to me was Corey Student's ring attire. My Lord.
Are you sure it was Corey Student or Storm?
It was. Storm's was ridiculous, but Corey Student's, his white baggy t-shirt under the tights, it reminded me of like if you were watching a 90s sitcom and the goofy character decided that he was going to be a wrestler. So like the next scene they come and they show him in like some absurd outfit that he put together to what he thinks a wrestler looks like.
Yeah.
Like that's what Corey Student looked like. And really, his ring attire is the only thing I have mentioned outside of the barbarian killing everyone.
Being so barbaric. I actually have a note about J.S. Storm's ring attire. Just looking like it was clearly homemade. And it's like the white with the black stripes, just so terrible looking and very fitting for his ring skills, because he was one of the worst enhancement talents that I've ever seen. He may have been
Bell
worse.
level.
He may have been worse than Kerry Davis, the guy that that needs cardiovascular conditioning. I mean, he was just so bad. Man, wow. I think it's the other way around. The Amazing Jonathan looks like J.S. Storm. What a shit match. Like, why even have this match on the show? Just end the show.
I think it's just trying to kind of bring the head shrinkers back and bring them into to the tag team world again. But yeah.
Well, like I said before, like they can't. They're not even taking themselves seriously with this. Like whenever it was Fatu and Samu, okay, it was like a legit tag team. They weren't always the best, but it was something that was not this. And I'm pretty sure Sion legit just kicked fucking the Amazing Jonathan in the face. Like I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that he just decided to just be a total barbarian here and just.
Sion is a monster. He is a big motherfucker.
He is, but he does not. And I know I'm fucking profiling again, but he does not look like he belongs there. Even Captain Lou Albano looks like he belongs there. This guy doesn't at all. He stands out like a fucking sore thumb. Thank Friar Ferguson, we're going to come out of this match and go into a new Catholic Church commercial. This time in the confessional, we only see the person's nose, mouth, and jaw area, and a bit of his neck. He's wearing a gold chain, has a toothpick in his mouth, and has a rough 5 o'clock shadow going on. Yo, Father, last night I hurt someone real bad. What provoked this action? I wanted his belt real bad, mang. Well, my son, it is written, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods. Well, he took the first swipe. Haven't you always been told to turn the other cheek? Yeah, Father, but when he took that swing at me, he broke my toothpick. So I raised him high above my head and slammed him. And what's important here is that at this point, there is a nice clear shot of Jesus on the cross behind the priest as this person is describing the razor's edge. This was genius. Fucking genius. I loved it. The pastor says, you mean you slammed a man to the ground because he slapped your mouth? Who do you think you are, Razor Ramon? Father, how'd you know? And yes, it is Razor Ramon there in the confessional. The new WWF generation, put your faith in us. And the final scene of this commercial is of Razor signing autographs through the confessional window. Joe, did you have opinions on this commercial?
These commercials, we've seen 3, right? 3 different ones.
Yeah, yep.
They have Bruce Pritchard written all over them. Like they had to be his idea writing all of these. It had to be all him.
Yeah, the only thing I have to say is this commercial was oozing with machismo.
Yeah, it was, and it was great. I could smell the Jerry curl through the screen. It was so fucking like up close to him. But, and I know I mentioned it in my description, but just that quick view of Jesus on the cross while the razor's edge is being described was just perfect. There should be some kind of award for that, and not eternity in hell. So whenever we return from this commercial, this is going to be the outro of the show. Doink's music is playing as Doink and Dink come down to the ring wearing Burger King crowns. Vince reminds us that next week Double J Jeff Jarrett will be taking on Doink, and you have to wonder if Jerry the King Lawler will show up in that match. We'll also have IRS in action, as well as the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith. Doink puts the extra Burger King crowns he brought with him on Vince and the Macho Man. Vince asks Doink about the newest development in the feud, namely Queasy. Doink says right here this weekend, he's got a little surprise for Jerry the King Lawler. Just a little surprise. Whoop, 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 whoop. And he does the finger gesture showing little. Join us next week, ladies and gentlemen, for more Monday Night Raw. And we fade to black. That does not bode well for the future. I know we've talked about the next 6 weeks going into Survivor Series, but the fact that Doink is referencing a little surprise for Jerry the King Lawler means that this is just going to get worse. And that's it. This episode of Raw is over. So, highlights and lowlights. Ryan, please.
Highlights. I'm going to go with the fact that we've kind of been spinning our wheels here for a few weeks where we weren't real sure where some of these feuds and storylines were going. But this week, I think it's really focused on leading up to Survivor Series and trying to start some of these teams together that we'll see in Survivor Series, as well as this is a very heavy episode on the $1 Million Man's Corporation. We get a few matches that are incorporating people from the corporation. So it's really starting to try and it's starting to kind of define the corporation as a force to be reckoned with in the WWF. And now they have their two big monsters in Bam Bam and King Kong Bundy. So that's going to be my highlight, is lead up to Survivor Series. Low light, King's Court and Queasy. The whole midget bullshit with Queasy, how bad he is on the mic, the fact that we're still trying to prolong this feud with Lawler and the non-Matt Doink, which sucks. It's my low light. Every time I see the non-Matt Osborne Doink, it's going to be a low light.
My low light is the entire show, the entire episode.
Yeah.
I pretty much hated all of it. My that's my low light. My highlight is when the show ended, because I hated the entire show. But I will say a real highlight is the fact that this was our third and final show in Utica. I don't know if you guys noticed, but the last 3 episodes, they kind of blended together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned before that Meltzer reported that these were all 3 filmed at the same time.
We get multiple mentions of Roseanne Barr, and Princess Diana.
Yes.
And,
So that is my highlight. The fact that we are out of Utica, New York, and next week we start fresh with a new location.
Yeah, that's a great silver lining on the situation. I'm glad you brought that up because it really makes me feel hopeful about the future. Whereas before I was starting to tie knots in a rope. So my highlight for this episode of Raw is a 2-way tie. It's a tie between Bam Bam Bigelow's performance in the first match of the night. While it was not a great match overall, because it's Lex Luger and it's pretty goddamn impossible to get a good match out of Lex Luger, Bam Bam worked his fucking ass off, and it to me, it reinforced my appreciation of him. I was happy watching him, even though he was wrestling Lex Luger and Lex was just a turd. The other half of that 2-way tie is going to be the constant close-ups and acknowledgement of the ring girl. Love her. She's gorgeous. Love having her there. Hopefully we get to see more of her. Not just from like a hotness perspective, but like she just looks so damn nice and congenial. And you can see why she was like a competitor, and you can see why she became a state rep and House Minority Leader. Like she looks like she's a pretty cool person all around, besides being hot, obviously. Low light, Joe, I'm with you. This entire Raw, those 2 golden nuggets aside, this entire Raw was just tedious. And I'm glad you mentioned about, the whole Utica thing, and, we started to put together the way that it's all connected, because I really am glad we're heading out of it. it felt so heavy on my shoulders by the time we got to the end of this. Like, gosh, I'm not looking forward to talking about this. That's obviously not the case. I'm here talking about it, but I was honestly afraid that we would piss off our number one critic and get too negative. You know what I mean? Like, because I mean, that is a legitimate criticism. I don't want to get too negative with this stuff, but sometimes like this Roseanne bullshit, it just drives us there and I can't fucking help it. But you know what? Silver linings. Yeah, with silver linings, we're coming out of Utica. We're going to get different chatter. We're going to get different matches. We're going to get a different setting. Hopefully we're going to get a whole different feel going into the next few episodes, even though it's going to be 6 more weeks of midgets. So, Joe, do you have any contemporary wrestling news on and around October 10th, 1994?
Yes. First off, Luna and Gangrel are engaged to be married on Halloween, which is very fitting. Because he is a vampire and she is a futuristic creature. The other thing that I wanted to note here from Dave Meltzer is, we mentioned it earlier, the bitterness that Vince still has for Hulk Hogan. I think we need to keep bringing this up because I think the whole, like we said earlier, the whole new generation thing is basically built around this. So Meltzer reported that Vince McMahon was on a cable sports talk show in Chicago on October 5th. McMahon came off as bitter against Hulk Hogan, saying that Hogan had told him that he would never work against him and couldn't understand why his friend would go against him and work in a minor league. McMahon said their split was because McMahon felt that Hogan, like every wrestler and every product, has a certain shelf life, and then it wears off. He said that he wanted to use Hogan as his Babe Ruth and bring him back to the plate for one big show every now and then. But Hogan wanted things to continue as they had been, with McMahon having to create larger-than-life heels for him, for that he'd then beat them resoundingly. McMahon claimed WCW wasn't competition, but called them a minor annoyance. The subject of steroids also came up, and McMahon claimed the government had no cause to do what it did, but admitted that it ruined what could have been for the WWF because nobody wants to do business with you if you're surrounded by controversy. So, yeah, Vince is still quite bitter with Hulk Hogan, for sure, and still feeling the effects of the steroid controversy. And that is all I have noted from October 10th, 1994.
Thank you very much. Informative as always. And that's it, folks. We're done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us, and especially you out there in Oregon. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Reddit by searching up the handle Wrasslin Raw. That's WRASSLINRAW. Also, don't forget to click subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw popping up in your podcast feed. Let us know what you think. Hit us with a 5-star review or 4 3/4 if you're Dave Meltzer, wherever you download your podcasts. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to get into the Raw that aired on October 17th, 1994, with matches featuring Roy Raymond and IRS, among others. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.